So the thing that we're always working towards with any election are the results, right? So we go down and we scroll down and we look for the really, really busy elections. So the way it works in Washington State is we have, I love it.
Yeah, it just, when you look at that slide.
Here we go. There we go. The way it looks the way it works in Washington State is we have the top two primaries. And it used to be you'd have a Republican primary and a Democratic primary, and one or the other, one from each party would show up for the general election. And some point a bunch of years ago, there was a lawsuit, sued the state, somebody sued the state. The parties, of course, fought to keep it the way it was, but ultimately the way the case was decided was that Washington would have top two primaries, and it meant that no matter how many candidates are running or filed to run for a particular office, regardless of party, after the primary, the top two vote getters move on to the general election. So I decided, I've been thinking about this for a long time. It's just, for me, it's a bucket list thing. Oh, I think I'm gonna run for office one day. And so when Alicia Topper moved on to be our county treasurer back in December or January 1st, the city council opted to fill a vacant position. And at that time, it made more sense for my wife to do it, so we said, here, sweetheart, why don't you do it? She did it. It's like, the hell with this process. And so then when it came time for this election, I started thinking about it. It's like, well, maybe now's the time to run for office. And it really is, it gets to where, when is ever a good time to run for office? Everybody asks me that. Well, why now? And it's like, I don't know, it just seemed like a good time now. So I chose to run for office, and here are the results. This is the first, it's a two-step process. So everybody who filed, all 7 of us, Diana Perez, Jeannie Stewart, me, Adam Aguilera, Mike Pond, Darrell Singh Yorzen, and Sarah Fox, all filed for this position back in May, and I'll come back to that in a second. And 2 of us moved on to the general election. And in this case, the 2 that moved on were Jeannie Stewart with 5,060 votes and Sarah Fox with 5,183 votes. Top 2 vote getters go onto the ballot. Sarah, because she got more in the primary, will be the top listing on the general election ballot, and then Jeannie will be second in position on that. So what goes in getting to this point is always the question, all right? Now, I'll tell you how I did it, and then I'll tell you how it should be done, all right? So we'll just leave that up there for right now. I decided pretty much late in the game. The way it works in Washington State is filing week. They have a week that's filing week, and it's when everybody who's running for the open races or the open seats in whatever the particular year it is, that's when you file. And it starts the Monday 2 weeks before Memorial Day, and it ends that Friday. So 8 o'clock Monday morning, 5 o'clock Friday afternoon is when everybody who wants to run files with the county elections board. And so everybody, all of the people on this 5-page sheet went in and filed at the county elections office that they wanted to run for office. You pay a filing fee that's, it's like 1% of the salary for the position, or something like, so it's like $240 or something like that. You pay that fee. The other option that you can do, that only one person has done it, and that's Mike Pond, who was very proud of the fact that he got enough signatures. I forget what the number that you got to get, but you can get enough signatures on a petition to not have to pay the filing fee. So those are the 2 ways that you do it. Then it's really, you go down to the elections board and go in, pay your filing fee, fill out the paperwork. They give you a pamphlet that says, well, this is how you're supposed to do signs and what's legal and what's not. And thank you very much and good luck with your campaign. I don't even know that they say good luck with your campaign, but you're off and running. So I went down there Friday about lunchtime. Went down there, my wife and I went down there and filled out the paperwork and took a selfie, and I don't even know if I ever posted or anything, and then headed on out for the rest of our day. That's how I started it. Now, then the next stop was, okay, what am I going to do? I got to get a campaign manager. Well, the daughter of a friend of mine, a lady named Carson McDonough, been around the community for a while, good friends with my wife, good friends with other people we both knew, actually daughter of my boss at the chamber, John McDonough. Her name kept popping up, so it's like, call Carson. And we agreed that she was going to be my halftime campaign manager during the primary, and then assuming I go on to the general, then we'd renegotiate and go from there. But that's always the first step, get a good campaign manager. Somebody who can manage all that stuff, and ideally manage the candidate. That's one that's sometimes a challenge with me, is having, being a candidate that's manageable. But good campaign manager is indispensable. It can be a relative. I will say though, if it's a spouse, that can be fraught, shall we say. Especially if you've got one spouse that's a particular style and the other spouse that's not, or a different style, it can be really interesting. So recommend against that. But that's the way some people do it. And if you've got a good partnership, it works well. So anyway, so campaign manager was the first step. First step. Second step was, of course, let's get a website up. So got to get your website up. There are a couple of different ways. There are several individuals, if you're running for office, or if you ever run for office or are elected, there are a number of folks that do this stuff professionally as their career. And they will charge you anywhere from $500 to several $1,000s to build you a good, solid campaign website. Which then, speaking of money, that brings us back to really what should be the second step, and that's fundraising. You've got to figure out and set a budget for your campaign, and what are you going to do to actually run for office. Me, I just figured I'd raise money, and as I had money, I'd pay for stuff. Not a great way to run a campaign, but it was still something that was a good learning experience, a good process. So for us, what we did is we said, well, let's just go on, and we actually went, found the domain names and several different variations of domain names that we wanted to be able to use for this election, and if we run for other elections down the road, or if I run for other elections down the road, I would want to keep these domain names reserved going forward. Nice thing about domain names is they're relatively inexpensive to purchase, and they're relatively inexpensive to maintain. So once you've got some good domains, you just hang on to them. The website is actually, we ended up using GoDaddy, one of GoDaddy's website builders that we used to actually build the website, and built it, and I did the initial, and then my campaign manager, who is really good with communications and websites and printing and all the rest of it, started working on my campaign theme, my literature. You'll see that this logo, this style, is really common throughout everything that we did throughout the campaign. So developing what's the campaign going to look like, and what are the how's the style going to look. Then it's a matter of starting to develop what are the issues that what are the issues that we're talking about, or that I believe are a priority in running for office. So transportation, small business development, bringing in new employers, training our next generation, and then supporting a stronger Vancouver. Our heritage, arts and culture, and multimodal transportation were sort of the key issues that I saw as being important. As I went through the campaign, the thing that I learned was that actually another one that was really important to many people around the community was the high cost of housing and then homelessness are two really important issues. And I learned throughout the campaign how important those issues were, and it's important that we deal with them as a community. So that was part of my education as I was going through. So anyway, so the website, it's going to have issues about the candidate, endorsements, and of course the ever important donation page that you'd want to have that's there, so you can actually do fundraising on the fly. Yes?
Did the handout that they gave you at the county, did it give you this kind of stuff that you should have in your campaign, or did you learn that from your manager? Or?
No, this is something it's like I said, this has been a bucket list item for me for years. So I've watched campaigns, been a student of campaigns. I believe elections and politics are the world's best spectator sport. It is always entertaining. You never know what the results are going to be. I could never have presumed to guess this particular outcome. I had scenarios that included one or two of the final two candidates, but both of them at the same time I really didn't think was going to happen, and I learned why later on. Actually, election night, I got clued in as to why. So, so website. Before I go on too long on website, then signs. How many of you saw my signs around the community? Okay, everybody saw my signs around. Oh, good. That part of my campaign went really well. You can do signs of various types. Generally, the largest sign that most people get is a 4-foot by 8-foot sign. Those are large. You need a pickup truck to move them around. You need a good storage place at your house if you're going to keep them. And they're work to get up. It usually involves lumber, carpentry, and a team of at least 2 people to get them up. And usually 3 or 4 is even more fun. It's more entertaining. Signs, the big signs, I learned those big signs, doing them and one of the things when you're printing stuff, whether it's literature like this, or if it's signs, if you're running as a Democrat, you want to make sure it's a union shop. You want the support of labor. If you're Republican, it may not matter so much, but if you're a Democrat, if you're running from the left and you want the support of unions, you gotta go to a union shop. And typically it's a little more expensive. There are some friends who own non-union print shops that I might have gone with and saved a few bucks, but for me it was important to make sure I had union or labor support if I could get it. All right? So the big signs, typically they're about, for double-sided, it's $110 a sign. If it's a single-sided sign, then it was like 60 bucks. So you save 10 bucks by getting them double-sided. You put those up, I bought 7 of those for the campaign, and it's where the high traffic areas. And you could see SR 14, there's Grand Central, there was Ellsworth, there's on the east side of 205, there was a sign farm there. 164th and SR 14, there was a sign farm there. And then I actually put one up on 192nd. At Brady was a place with me and Mike Pond had one up there. Andreessen is a good place to be. 39th and Main is a good place and you just see the popular sites are there because there's lots of traffic going by there. Ideally, you want to get them in unique locations where it's just you. But you don't need that many, and there's a debate on whether or not they really make a difference, and I'll come back to that in a second. All right? So, signs, really important. Yard signs, I printed up 200 yard signs, and they come to you in just a stack, and you got to put them on the stakes. And if you want to use, like, how many of you seen they're either on the wooden stakes or they're on the little metal things where they flap in the breeze? Well, I learned a process when we were actually making a determination on whether to buy. The way these foam core signs are made is it's a honeycomb. One layer honeycomb. And the honeycombs either go vertical, up and down, or left and right. If you're doing stakes, you want them left and right, because if they're up and down, the signs end up flapping in the breeze after time. And if you're doing the little metal things, then they've got to be up and down to be able to accept the signs. Anyway, little piece of
tickets.
and those signs typically for double signs about $3.60, three and a quarter a sign, depending on the volume that you get. So when they start disappearing during a campaign, you know, it can ring up. I ended up with about 60% of my signs back when all was said and done. I got about 110, 120 signs back. And so, you know, those, but they go in the garage, they're stored, and they're ready for the next time. So anyway, so enough on signs. Volunteers. Volunteers are the lifeblood of a campaign. I mean, money is one thing. Money pays for website signs, literature, all of that stuff. But it's volunteers that are going to help you get the signs up, that are going to help you with campaign events, that are going to call people, that are going to help you with doorbelling and going around the neighborhoods. And so volunteers, you can do it yourself, but it's a lot easier if you've got a good group of volunteers. Usually it's going to start with friends. It's going to start with friends and family that you can talk into it. And then as you're out talking to people and getting around more, then it's going to be folks who actually believe in your campaign and want to support you and help you out for whatever the case may be. And it's usually for the good of the community, or they just believe in your candidacy. And so volunteers are critical. The next area is endorsements. One of the things that we look at, we got donations, endorsements. Who likes you? It's funny. It's like somebody said to me, several people said to me throughout the election process that elections are additive, or politics are additive. And it's about how do you add on additional votes. And that's what it's all about. All right? And so the easy way that people start with this is endorsements. Now, me, I got in late. Guess what? Other candidates, these other candidates in the race had sewn up all of the other, you know, most of the political. So you go to the city, you go to city council. So you go to the members of city council each individually, you go to the mayor individually. You look for past mayors, past city council members, other either current or past electeds around the community, and you say, would you endorse me? And for me, my response that I got from most people as I'm announcing the last or next to last to announce for this race, oh, I'm sorry, Paul, I love you dearly, I would endorse you, but I've already committed to, you know, pick your candidate. And so for me, and there were a few that said, oh, you know what, it's a primary, we need top two, I'll endorse you. And then you want, you know, so there's individual or elected endorsements. Then the other piece is you want organizational endorsements. So for me, the best endorsement that I got throughout the campaign was the Columbians endorsement. And that was, to me, what I would think would be the most valuable and actually endorsement of the campaign. And, you know, so it's really cool when you see that headline, and we wait for it, and it usually comes out the week, around the week before when ballots drop, is the way the Columbian does their endorsements. And so they, this happened to be the Sunday, ballots dropped on Friday, and this was the Sunday before ballots dropped on that Friday. And so it's like, woohoo, yes. Our email communications, our website, and just making sure that we're plugging that however possible. So, you know, and you go around, you meet with neighborhood groups, you meet with neighborhood coalitions. I met with Democratic League, or well, the Democratic Women, the labor unions, different neighborhood groups, and you go out and you talk to all of these groups. So there are two things: is you're hoping for their endorsement, but at the very least, you're going to garner some votes by just coming out and talking to them on an individual level. Because none of the organizations, whether it's the parties or other organizations, are going to be monolithic in how they, how they vote or how the members of their group vote. They will take recommendations, and recommendations are nice, or endorsements are nice, but you pick up votes a little bit at a time. Then it's, in addition to those events, it's city council, or the farmer's market. That was my favorite. I love going to the farmer's market. Doorbelling, it's a mixed bag. Doorbelling is good because when you go out and you talk to people, they remember that. And frankly, most candidates are reluctant. I'm kind of reluctant as well to do doorbelling, but I've heard a number of different stories through the election process where folks said, this is the first time a candidate has come to my door and talked to me, he got my vote. And it may even be whether I'm really sure I agree with his politics or not, the guy came and spoke to me, or the lady came and spoke to me, they earned my vote. So, so doorbelling has its value. And then for me, it's events. If there's any place where there's a crowd, it's nice to be able to go set up a table, and then you're just standing there. Sometimes you'll walk around, but you can just stand at the table. People will come up and talk to you. They'll express concerns about whatever issues are that are on top of their mind, or just you may grab them as they're walking by and trying to avert their eyes and not look at you as they're trying to walk by. But it's a fun process, and so it's really great. All of this is, if you like getting out and talking to people, it's a great way to learn what's on people's minds and what's important to them. And for me, like I said, probably the biggest issue that I got the most expressions of interest in or concerns about was really homelessness and high cost of housing. For me, part of why I got into the race was it's about maintaining quality of life here in Vancouver. I got in because I want to see the I-5 bridge go. I think that transportation is important to our community. I want to see higher paying, quality family wage jobs come to our community. I want to continue to do economic development. And for me, quality of life. So a stronger Vancouver, maintaining arts and culture, and maintaining our connection with our past, and in particular, maintaining the Fort, Pearson Airfield, and all of the other historic elements that we've got here in Vancouver. So, all of that comes up to then here. How am I doing? 20 minutes, okay. Life's good. Let me know if we need less time, or tell me when you're done with me. So it all brings us up to the final results for this particular election. And so I wanted to, there's several things that I learned. Now, number one, if I look at how all of these campaigns were run. So me, I was the last guy in, right? Yes.
So I'm curious, as you started off, you said this has been on your bucket list a long time.
Uh-huh.
How come was there something that sparked you to go find I'm jumping in at the last minute? Because I already read up on you and all that.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, but it was so important to you. But now you probably feel like you're a tiny bit behind, and you keep saying last minute.
This is one, what got me started were some conversations with, I'm a pilot.
Okay.
I'm flying in and out of Pearson. Love Pearson. It's one of the countries, if not the oldest continuously operating airport in the United States. It's one of them. There's a lot of heritage there, and it's got a lot of history. And plus, it's just a good asset, a good community asset to have. If you look at Pearson, it brings something, what was the figure I saw? It raises $29 million in annual revenue. It actually is a profit center for the city. And it has somewhere in the neighborhood of 39,000 visitors to Pearson Field every year. So there's some value there. Plus, I believe any community that has an airport in it is a community I want to live in. And it's not just by being a pilot. It's something that, you know, you provide opportunities for kids to learn about planes, to grow up around aviation, to learn science. We've got Pearson Field Education Center has got this wonderful curriculum for kids pretty much of all ages to help them learn about just, you know, STEM, so science, technology, engineering, math of various sorts, with, of course, an aviation focus. And there are other activities around there that are helping kids to develop career skill sets, understanding, and this is a way to do it. So education is a part of it. Commerce is a part of it. There are industries or companies that are centered around aviation and aviation industry. There's some that are smaller that are there or around the field that are operating. And I see that as an avenue for us to develop. So that's sort of what got me started there. But it was really, it's also about, for me, making sure that while we're looking at all the other stuff that we're dealing with and important issues, that we maintain a good quality of life. One of the things that really irritated me a few years back is when we missed the opportunity to have baseball here in Vancouver. And I thought it was, it was handled,
to say the least.
there we go. It was handled poorly in the rollout at the county level, but it was also very short-sighted of our city council at the time to really push against it. And so we missed a good opportunity there as far as I was concerned. So for me, my feeling is that we've got to make sure that we maintain a good quality of life here. And so that's really sort of what prompted me to run. Yes? 4 minutes?
4 minutes.
Okay. So real quick, here's some things, lessons that I learned. Number one, start early. Start long before you do this. Now, it doesn't even guarantee anything, because Diana Perez, who was third, actually was one of the first people to seek out endorsements. She probably got the most endorsements of all our current elected. She had the support of the mayor, city council, and a number of other folks. She ran a good campaign. She didn't do well on signage, so her name wasn't that visible. But she started out early, like in January, February, starting to stir the pot and get things going on her campaign. Secondly, signs aren't everything. How many of you saw lots and lots and lots of Mike Pond signs out there? Yes. Amen. Every time I turn around, there's another Mike Pond sign.
They're
It's
still
like,
there, by the way.
yeah, there are a lot of them that are still there. He probably put out, I won't say 50 of the big signs, not as much on the small signs, but I don't know if it's 50, that may be stretching. But it seemed like every time I turned around, there was a large sign that was up. Now, and Mike ran an aggressive campaign. He ran probably one of the, you know, if you look at it classically, like really running to model to a really good campaign. Mike ran a good one. He was good on his signs. He was good on his communication. He was active around the community. He had a good volunteer base. He went to a lot of different events. But his weakness is that he didn't have and doesn't have a lot of experience. And he ran a good campaign with 2168 of the votes. And I came in about 136 votes behind him. And I was late, and I ran what I'll call an adequate campaign. So even running a good campaign, unless you're a great candidate, may not make that much of a difference. Adam Aguilera was probably, of all the candidates, he ran a good, solid campaign. He got out relatively early. He has some good experience, and he ran a good campaign. And he came in fourth. Right? Diana, as I said, ran a good campaign. Doral is somebody nobody knew, and he just started and just threw his hat in the ring. And he's a minister, and you know, nobody knew much about him before. The only thing I learned about him was that Columbia did an article when he threw his hat in the ring early on. Then, lastly, the big lesson, the lesson I took on election night when Sarah Fox came in first. Jeannie Stewart came in second. A lesson that was more than fair. And frankly, as we're going through the campaign, me and my campaign manager and my wife, and we're just all tossing around different speculation around what the final outcome was going to be. And I thought I had a good shot at it. I've got good name recognition around the community. Been around for a while, but I knew that this was a possibility just because outside of the elected community, the business community, the folks who were actively engaged, I don't have much name recognition. And that was the thing I took from this. But for Jeannie and Sarah, the big deal was that they had name recognition. Jeannie's name has been on the ballot many times. I'm not even sure how many times. Forever, right? So she's been around forever. She did not run a campaign. The election night when they're doing final interviews, that they go, well, does name recognition have a factor in your election? She goes, no, it was just strong campaigning, getting out early and running hard, and blah, 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 blah. No, it was name recognition. Sarah Fox, likewise, has run 2 or 3 times previously for different races, and so her name's been on the ballot. And Sarah actually ran a pretty good campaign. But it's the fact that you've been there before, and that's what everybody has said to me since. It's about name recognition. It'll be interesting to see how this result comes out for the general.